from life. I'm reading The Awakening Letters. Some years ago, the College of Psychic Studies in London published 2 small pamphlets under the title Letters from Our Daughters by Lady Sandys and Rosamond Lehman. They recounted the afterlife experiences of their daughter Sally and Patricia, who both died young and in tragic circumstances. So these letters are coming through Cynthia, Lady Sandys, and they have recorded them over 30 years. Lady Sandys goes into a contemplation of silent preparation for listening, and her spiritual hearing opens and she starts rapidly to write. It's a selection received through her mental mediumship, and they include startling comments from a variety of people, particularly Sir Alvary Gascoigne, Joe, who was her brother, Sandy's brother. These letters are a unique record of one man's post-mortem adventures and spiritual experiences. I have enjoyed reading part 1, which was called Awakenings, and part 2 is starting now, and there are various letters. Miscellaneous letters from communicators, which we have selected for their variety and we hope their exceptional interest. 4 letters from Arthur, Lord Sandys, Cynthia's husband. The angel. So, you want to hear more about angels? This is a far call, even for us. I'm very much interested in angels, and on the fairly rare occasions when I've seen them, I've been fascinated by their grace and beauty. They do not penetrate the lower etheric atmosphere, excepting at Christmas, and I think Easter to some extent. But Christmas is the feast of earth, Easter that of heaven. On the eve of Christmas, angels can be seen almost everywhere in the holy places. Westminster Abbey, St. Paul's, Iona, Glastonbury, and so on. My first encounter was in Westminster Abbey, after visiting the Battle of Britain Chapel. There was a beautiful angel on guard at the door. I tried to communicate with his high spirit, but ordinary vibrations did not register. He or she was in deep meditation, so I slipped away, keeping an eye on the possibility of a change in the forces of his thought. But it went on, and the stillness of his figure looked as though he had been carved in stone. I came back and tried to sense the vibrations, but they were completely different from ours. Longer and slower, altogether outside time as we know it. I waited, and after a long interval, he sighed and moved, caught sight of me and smiled, and then said, "Earthman, you are no airman." "No," I confessed, "I am only an earth soldier." He sighed again, saying, "I'm nearer to the flying men, but I have been on Flanders fields too, and that is where you come from, I see now." I was very surprised. Time has taken me so far from those days. I did not expect the angel hosts to sense the mud of Flanders on my boots today. But I was wrong. He shuddered and continued, "All this time and you still carry horror in your aura?" I said, "How can I free myself of these experiences?" The angel came quite close to me, and it seemed to be in the center of a mighty rushing wind. When it had passed, the angel had vanished, but the sigh which I caught on the wind said, Now you are free. This made me realize that I had held on to the vibrations of France and Flanders, treasuring them and holding them far too close for my advancement. Now I can move, and I think much faster in consequence, and I know that it is all due to the angel. Another letter. The night makers. I'm so grateful to you for keeping to the regime of prayer together at the same hour. It's very good for me to have a routine. That is something that we all miss over here, where there is no natural routine of night and day to set the tenor, or meal times, or seasons to set the mode of life, or to alter the endless sunshine and beauty of timeless perfection. Many people find this very irksome. Some have longed so intensely to return to night and day that they have formed a little group called night makers. They meet and induce darkness, relaxation and sleep. It all began from a desire to make a pause between doing and being, and now it has grown into something mystical. They see the night as we used to, in clear weather, with a moon and stars, and become conscious of the subjective influence of reflected light. Moonstruck, we used to call it, but here it is something quite tangible. The moon rayers have quite a curiously different approach, and I, for one, am studying this more carefully. They are all ardent earth workers, so they synchronize their nights with yours in order to have more power and help during sleep. They are used by the healers and artists and most of the groups of inspirational workers. Pat let me find them all by myself, and it came about like this. I was sitting in the garden of thought, trying to space out my life, which is hard at first when timelessness lets the weeks through, while one is just thinking over one theme, interrupted now and then by your constant calls, which at first made my days, and though they seemed to come in an erratic pattern to you, to me they seemed fixed and regular. Your need for me rose whenever the substance of my last close contact was exhausted. This made a routine for me to work by, but it was not sufficient, and I found I was awry with times and seasons on earth, and if I were to be really useful, I must align myself more clearly. I was thinking this over when a man whom I'd known in the engineers came up to me and asked if I knew about the night makers. I said, no, who are they? And he explained, having seen the trend of my thoughts, that if I needed routine and a time check in my life, I should join them. So he took me to one of those night areas. It was most exciting. Gradually the sunshine ceased and twilight, and then darkness fell as we entered a cypress grove. The stars were brighter than I had ever seen them, and the moon, though not lamping San Miniato, was lamping this garden of beauty and stillness. It was an entirely new sensation of peace. This night light, which was being produced artificially, was specially for healing and inspiration during sleep. I watched and listened, and gradually I saw how to use it. My Royal Engineer friend drew in the vibrations at once and went off on his private line, leaving me standing in the cypress garden flooded with moonlight. People were coming and going. Many were being brought in their sleep bodies for health and refreshment, Others were guarding the lines of return against the entry of less evolved spirits. This sounds selective, which of course it is. One can only work upon the level of one's own vibration. But many who come over with a grudge against vested interest or class feeling are forever trying to push their way into the spheres nearest to Earth, which have been set up especially to help all of you in the body. I wandered round the defences. According to my army training, they were non-existent, but I soon found out that was not so. Masses and masses of tiny threads of force had been spun like a spider's web all over the area, and anyone vibrating at a purely selfish level with a desire to force their way in reacted immediately in the central staff office. Then, instead of a curt refusal of entry, such as I might have given on duty, someone was sent at once to help the intruder. They were dealing with this when I arrived, and I asked if I could join the defense party and watch how it was done. I started off with my new friends, and we soon met the intruder, a big bully of a man in the twilight area, and the scene went as follows. The guard welcomed the newcomer with, "Hello, are you searching for darkness after all the dreariness of Earth?" "No," was the answer, "but I want to go everywhere, and I was told this was a closed area. I've come away from all that, and I want to go places. What's your answer?" "Come and see for yourself." This staggered me. Then, unseen by the intruder, an envelope of non-seeing was spun into his aura, and we proceeded back to the garden. Gradually, the dark, clear moonlight replaced the twilight, and the full beauty of the garden came into view. But the intruder saw only darkness within, and profound fear penetrated into his aura. He was lost in it. He put out a hand for guidance, and finding that of the guard, he said, "Isn't there any light?" "Well, no, that's the idea. Don't you like it?" "No, take me back at once into the sunshine." So we did, leaving him a wiser and perhaps a humbler man. I was glad to be able to spin out my days in this manner. When one comes over here with the strength to carry one through endless daytime, the element of time ceases. It flows on and on, like a moving carpet. It may feel like centuries to you since I left my body, but to me it feels like yesterday, in spite of all the newness and excitement of this life. Those who have studied meditation provoked this period of night, which I was telling you about. They found, as they produced night, they gained an inner vision and another type of power, which could only accumulate through the use of an unseen light, something which they called the inner sun. This was what I was searching for, and after seeing the ability of the novice to feel the sunlight, as I told you in my last letter, I ceased to question the curious feeling that was surging up in me. There was a sense of tingling. A curious electrical charge seemed to be diffused all around me. I was told, "This is what you must now use to enlarge the depth and color of your aura and the strength of its penetration." I was delighted and set to work trying to breathe this intangible force into myself. At first I could do nothing with it. Then I suddenly took hold, and I felt like a balloon that you used to blow up for the children. At first the sensation was exhilarating, but it soon became tense, and I felt as though my aura was cracking at every pore. I tried to let go and escape, but I couldn't. "What happens now?" I asked. "Go on, don't worry about the sense of expansion. That is unlimited. You still hold all these ideas of limitation. Throw off the sense of bursting and go on. All very well, but the sense of bursting was so strong that I called on Pat to come and help me. She came, and how she laughed. I'd gone off on my own and, as usual, got into trouble. As she put it, exactly how she turned off the taps and got me back into daylight, I can't remember. The next thing I knew, we were sitting on the grass laughing about it, and she was telling me that I'd gone too far and too fast, as usual. "You are too precious, Pa," was her main comment. This nightlife of mine is now becoming one of my sources of power. If you found me distant or difficult to contact, as you did yesterday, it's because I haven't quite grown up to the size of my aura, just the reverse of being too big for one's boots. Pat keeps on reminding me that there is not a dull minute over here, and I find this to be more and more true as I adventure out alone. Soon I shall go back to Ferguson, my old RE friend, and see what I can do to stir him. His reply, when it was mentioned that the urge to go on is very great, had begun, "Oh, don't worry about that. If you take no notice of it, it goes off." Pat says, "Don't worry people to develop if they have no wish to. It means their earth ties are too strong, and they had better rest and relax in the sunshine. And when they have exhausted that pleasure, they will either move on naturally or return to earth in another body." Another letter. Shakespeare. I'm going to talk about our world, not yours. You need to think more, pray more, and feel more clearly the effect of our rays and influences. First, I'm going to tell you about Shakespeare. It's 4 centuries since his birth, and so many people are thinking towards him that he has returned to my plane, and we have all seen, heard, and enjoyed the billows of laughter, the riotous fun, and the calm, incisive philosophy which accompanies him everywhere. As a personality, he is full of warmth and wit, completely in charge of his ego, a prince among men. How he makes me laugh, far more than ever before, because I can now understand the Elizabethans' enormous pleasure in plain jokes. I'm struck by the tremendous amount of good our comedians do. They relax the whole structure of the tense mental frame and give us a common note of laughter. My first meeting with Shakespeare was just as he was listening to the call that went out for his anniversary at Stratford. I saw him trying to remember just how much or how little Stratford meant to him. Stepping close, I asked if he continued to write plays on the etheric, or whether he could influence the earth actors to see things as he saw them. He looked at me for some moments and then said, "No, there is no need. The world has moved on, but the things I wrote aren't tied down to one period. I'm so glad human nature doesn't really change. It's still dishonest and lazy, honorable and exalted, all the things that are such fun to portray. Even now, the England which I loved is still set in a silver sea. She has grown, but the essentials are unchanged. The soldiers still grumble, the wives still quarrel and attack each other and their husbands. Mankind is still filled with curiosity and tediously obstinate. Yes, in themselves they are just the same. I could live in modern England and enjoy it just as much, perhaps more so, because of these new exciting changes, which are neither so new or so exciting to us, having used these faculties in the etheric to a far greater extent. But now, to see them as gone on earth gives novel flavour. This wireless, as you call it, with which you see in your homes, that which is going on elsewhere soon, if you only knew it, you could and probably will see things projected from other planets. Oh, they are watching you all, you precious children. One day you will see us projected on the screen of vision, and then how will you accept this prodigy of science? It will all fall within your scope of science, life and reasoning, and all the greatness will be robbed by the smallness of men's minds. Will they never grow to match the universe in which we live? And then he turned away and entered into one of his long silences, watching humanity and still caring for you all. That is what makes Shakespeare so great. He loves mankind. It's a Christ-like faculty, and because of that, he suffers and is reborn with almost every performance of his plays. Shakespeare can never lose touch, because you are all continuously calling him, and his plays cannot lose the living touch, because he is reenacting them through the minds of the actors and producers all the time. So, I finish after this letter. The next one is the Executioner's Island, and I'll read that soon. Have a lovely April the 9th. It is a Thursday.